So far away, Nisha, what's your favourite thing about space?
I just like the fact there's so much about it that's unknown. It's just so spooky.
Spooky space. The field of space travel is one ostensibly entrenched in the scientific method. With this in mind, you'd assume that everything leading up to a space launch would be an exceedingly complicated, boring and clinical affair. However, as a large tree once owned by Yuri Gagarin proves, this isn't always the case.
Now, obviously, sending a rocket into space would take a lot of work.
Yeah, it does take a lot of work, and you wouldn't be remiss for thinking that the people in charge of getting rockets into the upper atmosphere, the people in charge of sending billions of dollars worth of bleeding edge technology screaming into the upper atmosphere at 5 times the speed of sound would be quite rational, logical individuals. However, rocket launches are something that are heavily steeped in both tradition and superstition.
So, do you have any examples of this?
Yes, I do. For example, one tradition observed by scientists who are in charge and help make rocket launches a reality is paying tribute to previous pioneers of aviation and space travel. And the most baller example of this being done occurred when man first stepped on the moon, during which mission Neil Armstrong took a piece of the original Wright Brothers plane with him, meaning that a piece of the first plane to escape the lofty bounds of gravity is now sitting on the surface of the moon. A literal galaxy-sized flex few will ever hope to equal, let alone top.
So yeah, that would be pretty hard to top that.
I'll talk about another great story of just flexing on the moon, and that is the story of Eugene Cernan, I believe, who, when he went to the moon, took his finger and then wrote his daughter's name in the lunar dust. And because the moon has no atmosphere to speak of, that name will likely stay there for eons. That might be one of like the coolest fucking things ever, isn't it? It's like,
That's awesome.
Oh yeah, how do you pay tribute to your daughter? Oh, I wrote a fucking name on the moon, it'll be there for millennia. After humanity is dead and gone, her name will still be there, fuck you. And the thing about that is it was obviously done in recognition of the Wright brothers' contributions to aviation, which eventually led to space travel, but I can't help but see it as a fuck you. Oh, what did you do with your little shitty plane? You got, 4 foot off the ground and travelled for 20 foot? We went all the way to the moon. Let's just put it there for you. Come and get it when you're ready. It's like, oh, it's so bad. It's so good. I love it.
So scary, but so awesome. Like, the idea of getting, lost in space terrifies me. It's the same with the ocean. Just anything that's, unknown. So yeah, there's no doubt that those traditions are pretty awesome.
Yeah, and there are less visually impressive ones, I suppose, that are worth talking about, such as before rocket launches, they'll make chili a lot of the time at NASA, and then they'll eat peanuts because one guy brought peanuts and they all ate them before a successful space probe launch when the previous few launches had gone poorly. So now they eat peanuts before launches for good luck. And there's a whole bunch of ones like that, but no figure in space travel is treated with more reverence and more respect than Yuri Gagarin, the original spaceman.
So what do astronauts do to honour Yuri Gagarin?
Well, they do a whole bunch if they happen to be taking off for space from the, and I hope I'm pronouncing this correctly, the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, where Yuri Gagarin's famous space launch took place. And it's noted that if you wish to take off from there, you have to observe a number of traditions, which include, but are not limited to, watching the film The White Sun of the Desert, getting a haircut exactly 2 days before the launch takes place, sitting in silent contemplation a few minutes before you leave for the mission, and then signing the door of your hotel room when you do. All things Yuri Gagarin is said to have done before he went to space, besides, I presume, constantly shitting himself in fear.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he was shitting himself, because I'd be exactly the same.
Yeah, you have got to sit on this hunk of metal that's going to be sent screaming into the atmosphere at speeds hitherto unheard of in history. Fuck you. He's like, okay, I'll do it. And the famous story about how Yuri Gagarin became the first man in space, because there was a few people vying for that role. And one of the ways that they decided who got to go to space was they asked each cosmonaut, or each potential cosmonaut, if you couldn't go to space, who would you send in your stead? And everyone chose Gagarin. And before we move on, there are a few great stories about Gagarin's trip to space. My favourite being that when he crash landed in the capsule that took him to space, he crawled out in full cosmonaut outfit and just saw a Soviet local there who was dumbstruck about what they'd just seen. And they asked him, did you just come from space? And Gagarin just took his helmet off, smiled and went, as a matter of fact, I have. It's like, what a fucking baller line that is.
So good.
There's another thing as well, because I'm guarantee someone in the comments is going to talk about this. I'm going to mention it first. Fuck you. And it is that, for a while, one of the standard pieces of equipment given to Soviet cosmonauts was a double-barreled shotgun. You might be thinking, why would you need a double-barrel shotgun in space? Like, they didn't need it for space, they needed it for when they landed, because they would very often land in the middle of, like, the woods. And the Russian woods, no one wants to land in the middle of the Russian woods because they're cold as fuck, but they had the double-barrel shotgun to fight off bears.
Oh, God.
In case bears came to investigate the capsule and tried to eat them. Imagine now, like Gagarin stepping out of a capsule with a double-barrel shotgun like the Terminator. No, it's going to end us all. All those movies about first contact would be really different if the alien stepped out and just had a fucking piece. I love when films about aliens show them having weird, cool weapons, because like, they would develop like weapons that are different to what humanity did. And that's one of the reasons I really love District 9, because they have like just the head explode gun. Oh, the other one was like the pig launcher.
Oh, yeah,
the pig like picks up the pig and just boom.
I remember watching that film Mars Attacks. That used to freak me out so much.
The skeleton ray.
Just
turns people into like sex skeletons. What are you gonna do? I love how that film it ends with a fist fight. He just punches an alien.
All these weapons.
All that weaponry is fucking ended by just like one jab to the head. It's like, what is it now? Independence Day. Where like the alien comes screaming out of the crashed ship and Will Smith just fucking decks it. It's just, boom, like welcome to Earth. It's so good.
The best weapons are your fists.
Welcome to Earth.
And I'm going to mention this because I don't think I want to get set up this perfect again, but I recently found out that, do you know the line in Independence Day where Will Smith is dragging the alien and he goes, what the hell is that smell? And just starts kicking the alien.
And what the hell is that smell?
That was ad-libbed, and it turns out that where they were filming that was a salt bed where the brine shrimp, I think it is, when they get hit by the sun, it's just this awful fishy smell that constantly permeates the air. And Will Smith was genuinely asking, what is that smell? And just kicked the alien in frustration. Anyway, getting back to Gagarin, one of the most famous traditions observed by potential cosmonauts or astronauts wanting to leave from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan is pissing on the left back wheel of the bus that takes them to the rocket launch. And even though modern spacesuits, you can pee in them if you want, astronauts and cosmonauts like to do this, just to pay tribute to Gagarin, even though it's not really clear if he did it or not. And as an idea of how important adhering to this tradition is, it's noted that women and men with performance anxiety will piss in a bottle beforehand and then splash it on the back wheel of the bus. just imagine, like, just a bus full of astronauts and cosmonauts, like in full gear, like these heroes, like these pinnacles of what humanity can achieve. Like, they are so intelligent, so fit, like they are like just the best of what we have to offer, and they're all sat there with a jar of piss in their hand, just waiting for their chance. So that's just it. I love it because it makes space travel just seem more relatable.
So yeah, I picked this article because it mentioned a tree. What is this about a tree?
Well, one of the other things that cosmonauts and astronauts are asked to do before they set off from the Baikonur Cosmodrome is plant a tree in the avenue of cosmonauts. And this is just a long avenue, as you might imagine, flanked by trees, planted by every cosmonaut and astronaut to have taken off from that launch site. And as you probably guessed, folks at home, the first person to plant a tree there was Yuri Gagarin. And because his tree is the oldest, it's also the biggest. But the reason I really like this is because every single time this is mentioned, it is always pointed out that Gagarin's tree is the biggest. Like, you can find documentaries talking about space travel where they mention the avenue of cosmonauts, and they always, for some reason, feel the need to single out that Gagarin has the biggest tree. And it's obvious that his tree would be the biggest because it's the oldest, but the fact that it is always pointed out really cracks me up for some reason. The fact you have these scientists, these like experts in their fields, like just going up and going, this tree's pretty big, it's Yuri Gagarin's tree. His is the biggest. It's like, well, yeah, I know it's the biggest. I can see it's the biggest, yeah, but Gagarin's is the biggest. Yours will be small because it's just been planted, but Gagarin's is bigger. There was just something really adorable about that to me.
Just talking about space just makes you think like how scary it actually is, because a lot of it is unknown.
Yes, we mentioned earlier in the video, but I think it was cut for time, but me and you are terrified of just the concept of space, just this wide open, like just expanse of nothingness,
Yes.
where if you fuck up, that's it, you're done. But it's not like you don't die instantly. You just float and that's it. That's game over. And I think one of the most anxiety-inducing things I have ever watched, it's a short, Love, Death, Robots on Netflix. I recommend people go watch it. They're really good. And one of the shorts is, it's a astronaut in space, and I think they become, due to various shenanigans, become unhooked from their space thing and just start floating really, really slowly away from safety. And that is fucking terrifying. And it's for that reason I'm also scared of like open water, because I have had like a very minor run-in with open water that's made me fear and respect the ocean. And that was, as a kid, when you like go, I want to see how deep I can get.
Yeah.
And I was a really little kid, and I'm in the ocean, I'm doing that thing where you like jump up, and you jump up because you're in the water, and it's really funny. And then just a little current got me. And then when my feet went down, there was no sand. I wasn't touching anything, so I'm just floating.
Oh no.
And I couldn't really swim very strong back then, so I'm like, oh, I'll just swim back, and I'm panicking. And all I can see is just the beach very slowly getting further away from me. And luckily, like, my dad was nearby and he come and got me, but just that 10 seconds of there is nothing I can do and I'm just seeing safety slowly draw into the distance was fucking terrifying.
That's so scary. What freaks me out about the ocean is when you go out quite far and then you feel something touch your feet. You can't see what it is.
No.
I'm like, oh God, what is it? And I hate the feel of seaweed as well. I know it's just seaweed, but just feeling seaweed get wrapped around your feet is just, I'm going to be trapped in the ocean.
And every now and again, you just see those videos of people kayaking in the middle of the ocean and just a fucking shark goes past.
It's the same with like small spaces as well. I can't stand small spaces. Like the thought of being like buried alive or trapped in a small room with no way out.
Why are you doing this to me, Nisha? Halloween's already gone. Why are you scaring me by talking about this shit?
I'm so sorry.
Why would you do this? This is one of those things, and I'm curious if other people do this too, because I can't be the only one, but when I watch movies where people go underwater, I get really anxious because I don't like being underwater. I don't like the feeling of not being able to breathe. I think it's quite understandable. So something that I do, like almost subconsciously, is whenever someone goes underwater in a movie, I'll hold my breath just to see if I could survive the situation that they're in.
And do you ever survive?
And I never can because the movie goes on for long. And most of the time, yeah, I do die, and it makes me really uncomfortable. I don't like it.
I've never tried that. I might try that now.